In our review series here so far on budget knives, we've now covered 4 knives. We've covered this Sativian, the ST102. Um, really like that knife for what it is as a budget knife. The Civivi Backlash, which of course is probably the one I've carried the most and used the most, other than the fairly soft steel. Really enjoying that knife. The Civivi Praxis with the Damascus steel. That's a knife that I carry generally on Sundays when I go to church, just because I like the way the knife looks. It's just a very attractive looking knife. Just got this one in, so I haven't had a chance to really use it. Just did a review on that one, an unboxing and kind of an initial review. This is also a Sativian um, with Damascus. I like the look of that knife with the Damascus and then the wood scales and some of the other details that it has. Think I'm going to like that knife. And then we have the Sanrenmu that we're going to look at today. So this knife was actually probably my first introduction to a kind of a budget steel knife, Chinese knife. I had actually just stumbled across this on Amazon. At the time, I think this thing was selling for like $11 and had really good reviews and lots of good reviews. So I went ahead and bought it. Clearly, if anybody knows anything about knives, one of the first things you'll notice about this knife is that it is a Chris Reeve Sebenza clone. Okay, I'm definitely not going to pay the price that those things run because I honestly, if I'm being honest, I just don't like the style or look of this knife that much. But I thought for $11, maybe I would like it more than I thought I did, so I would. So I went ahead and purchased it. I knew I wasn't going to like this kind of texturing they have in here. Almost looks like grip tape or the deck of a skateboard, something like that. Um, but anyway, so I went ahead and got this knife. I haven't opened it yet because you'll see for very obvious reasons. Um, the knife itself, the actual build quality, like a lot of these other knives, was fairly impressive. It is a frame lock, but I very quickly discovered that this is some of the softest steel I think I've ever had in a knife. Supposedly this is a 12C27 steel, which I've never utilized or come across in any other knife. So from everything that I could tell, just reading up on it, it's supposed to be fairly similar to a 420 HC steel, which I don't really care for 420 steels at all, HC or otherwise. So it doesn't surprise me that I don't like this steel. The only thing I've really ever used this knife for is basically opening boxes. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see it on the camera there or not, but there are abrasive marks all through this knife. And that's literally from just one time that I went and utilized it for opening some cardboard. I'm going to wipe some of these fingerprints off if I can. Maybe you can get a better look. But but anyway, it just really just tore the blade up as far as the looks of it, um, just from simply cutting cardboard. Now I know cardboard's fairly abrasive, but to just mar the finish of a knife like that um, doesn't speak much for the quality of the steel. Now, as far as the knife itself, I think these have gone up in price quite a bit. For $11, honestly, I'm not impressed with it. I probably still wouldn't recommend it necessarily to anybody. But, I mean, $11 is so cheap for a knife that maybe you could use this, find a purpose for this. Maybe you could utilize it in some way and definitely wouldn't feel bad about it if it got destroyed. Now, I will say it does open okay. I have rather large hands, so I struggle with opening it just because I can't get my thumb low enough on the knife and still get a good purchase on the knife to open it. So I'm really kind of contorting my hand to get it to open. But if I get a good flick on it, the thing does fly open pretty well. It is fairly smooth as far as like gliding on the pivot there. I don't recall if this one is supposed to have ball bearing um, on it, a ball bearing action. I don't think it does, to be honest. But it's still fairly smooth. So there's no real complaints there. If you like the frame lock, it's kind of neat to get a frame lock at that price point. Now, I'm not sure. Like I said, I think these things are more in the $20 to $25 range now, and I definitely, me personally, would not buy it for that. But if you're somebody who's wanting to just see what a Sabenza style knife feels like and whether or not you would like it, this might be a good way to just kind of test that out. Obviously, realizing you're talking about something that is a small, tiny fraction of the quality that you would get with an actual Sabenza. Um, but I don't know. Maybe you could find a reason to use it or find a purpose for it. Honestly, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one. Uh, Again, if you could find it for $11, I probably wouldn't even purchase it again for that. Maybe you would. But this kind of got me started down that trail of wondering, like, how good of a quality knife can you get for a budget price? And while I don't think this is the one, I don't know that I would ever buy anything else from this brand. And again, I don't even know how you pronounce it, Sanrenmu. But it did start me down this path. So a lot of these other knives, like the Civivis and the Sativians, those are knives that I bought because I purchased this, and I was fairly impressed with the actual build quality itself on this knife. Everything was tight, everything fit right, but overall, though, it's still not the kind of build quality that you have, even with the Civivi and stuff. The one thing I had mentioned in an earlier video is an off-center blade kind of shows you. Well, you can look at that blade right there and see where that's centered in the tip of the tip of the knife, how it's centered. It's not centered at all. It is way off center on that. So, I mean, that just kind of right there tells you you've got all this gap on this side, no gap at all. It's actually rubbing on this side. Um, so, I mean, for $11, I was still fairly impressed with the quality of it, as far as how it felt in the hand. It felt solid. It wasn't loose. You know, the knife opened fairly well. But it just is what it is. It was an $11 knife. So, not going to spend a lot more time on that one. Out of all the knives I've had so far, I would probably at least half-heartedly recommend all of them. This one, I don't think even gets that.